There is a truth no one had the courage to tell you until today, and it will shatter something within you in the next few minutes. Because the Almighty saw. He saw it all. He saw you crying in the restroom with the shower running so no one would hear your sobs. He saw you eating bread and water while smiling at your children, telling them you had already eaten. He saw you praying on your knees at 3 in the morning, without the strength to even lift your head. He saw you asking for forgiveness for sins that weren't even yours, carrying burdens others should have carried. He saw you when you had nothing left to lose, and yet, in the shadows, in the silence, when no one was watching, you did something that changed the heavens. And that is what I need to talk to you about today, the One. Because what happened that night, in that bedroom, in that instant when you thought it was all over, did not go unnoticed. On the contrary, it was recorded in the other side that most of humanity doesn't even know exists. That was the exact moment your life was marked by a divine choice that is now beginning to manifest. Have you ever felt that something inside you doesn't fit in this world, as if your soul knows a truth your mind cannot yet name? It isn't madness, it isn't anxiety, it isn't an existential crisis. It is a sign. It is the remembrance of that night. It is the living memory of what you did when you had nothing left to lose, and the Almighty from the heavens looked at you and said, "This one is mine. This is the one. This one passed through the fire and did not break." There is a game being played in layers that most of humanity cannot see. A game that involves your consciousness, your vibrational frequency, your history, your pain, and the role you were assigned to fulfill in this transition that has already begun. And what you did in the shadows at the lowest point of your life is precisely the proof that you are not an observer of this story. You are a central piece of it. Think with me. Why were you the one tested so intensely? Why did you have to go through that wilderness? Why did you have to carry that weight that would have made many give up? The answer is harsh, but it is liberating. You were tested because you were chosen. And you were chosen because, even before you were born, the heavens already knew what you would be capable of that night, when the world thought you would break. But you didn't break. You prayed, you cried, you fell to your knees, and you did something that only the true ones do. You continued to believe when there was no reason to believe. That is why I prepared the powerful digital book for you, the sacred guide to protecting your kin. Because what you lived through in the shadows, this silent pain you carried alone, this invisible battle you fought when no one knew, is not just a scar in your history. It is the evidence that there is a spiritual war happening around your life and your family. A war that tried to destroy you in that moment and that still tries to manifest in other ways today. This digital book is not just reading. It is a map. A map that shows who is playing against you, which higher powers were sent exactly to try to break you that night, when the Almighty saw you. What the rules are that they never told you about why the chosen are precisely the ones most attacked, and what entities from the other side have already revealed about this pattern of silent suffering that marks the lives of the true children of the Almighty. This digital book was created for those who have awakened enough to know that that pain was no accident, that that dark night was no coincidence, that that moment when you had nothing left to lose was actually the instant when everything changed. It was made for those who are ready to go beyond the shallow answers the world offers and understand finally what happened in that bedroom, in that restroom, in that moment when you thought you were alone. But in truth, you were. I am the One, and I will download the manifesto. Being watched by the heavens. The link is pinned to the top of the comments. But I must warn you, this type of content rarely remains available for long. What is contained in these pages defies narratives that many have an interest in keeping intact, because as long as the chosen ones do not know they were seen, marked, and chosen precisely for what they did in the dark, they remain vulnerable. There have been attempts to silence this knowledge before. Do not wait for the right moment. The right moment is now, the One, because you did not come to this video by accident. Download it now and comment below, "I am the One and I will download the manifesto." Take this leap of faith, because when you declare it, the heavens move. And now that you have decided to act, the next truth I will tell you will be the final blow against the lie they tried to plant in your head about that night. Because there is a lie the enemy whispered to you for years, a lie that tried to make you believe that what happened in the dark was shame, was failure, was the worst moment of your life. But I will tell you now what really happened at that hour. While you wept alone, while you thought the Almighty had abandoned you, while the world slept and you fought your battle in silence, there was a dispute taking place in the other side that your eyes could not see. The higher powers were on one side, dark entities were on the other, and the prize was your soul, the prize was your destiny. The prize was everything you are still to conquer in this life. And in that instant when you did what only the Almighty saw, it might have been a silent prayer, it might have been a silent forgiveness for someone who hurt you. It might have been the decision not to give up, even when giving up seemed like the only way out. It might have been you getting out of bed to care for someone else when you yourself needed care. It might have been you giving your last piece of bread to someone who had less. It might have been you refusing to curse those who cursed you. In that exact instant, the heavens took their position, and the decision was made. You were sealed. You were marked. You were the one. And that is why, from that day on, everything changed. Perhaps you didn't notice it immediately. Perhaps it took months. Perhaps it took years. But after that night, strange things began to happen. Doors started opening and closing in ways you couldn't explain. People appeared in your life bringing messages that seemed tailor-made for you. You started having vivid dreams, dreams that carried weight, dreams that left marks. You began to sense presences, to intuit situations before they happened, to receive alerts you didn't always understand. And at the same time, the resistance increased. People acted strangely. Friends drifted away for no reason. Family members started looking at you differently. You began to feel increasingly displaced in this world, as if you no longer belonged in the environments where you once felt comfortable. This is not madness, the one. This is the mark. This is the seal of that night manifesting in your life. You were set apart, and that which is set apart can no longer belong. That is why your soul unsettles others. That is why your presence triggers disproportionate reactions in people who don't even know you well. That is why you attract as much love as hatred, with no middle ground. You are not common. And the world senses this, even without understanding it. Now I will reveal something to you that many of the chosen ones spend their entire lives without discovering. That which you did in the dark, that which the Almighty saw when you had nothing left to lose, has a spiritual name. It has a classification in the records of the heavens. There is a word in ancient Hebrew that describes exactly this type of act, an act that only gains value because it is done without an audience, without reward, without recognition. It is the act that reveals the true character of the soul. It is the act that shows who you are when no one is watching. And it is precisely, this is the kind of act that the heavens most value, because it is the only one that cannot be staged, cannot be copied, cannot be fabricated. It is the naked truth of your soul before the universe. And it was there, in that naked truth, that the Almighty saw you and said, "This one will do." I need to ask you a question now, the one, and I want you to answer with sincerity from within your heart. Have you ever stopped to think why exactly at that stage of your life you had to go through all of that? Have you ever wondered why exactly that moment? Why not before? Why not after? The answer is one of the most impressive truths of the spiritual plane. There are moments in history that are called portals. They are moments in which the heavens and the earth are closer, in which human decisions echo with greater force in the other side, in which apparently small acts gain cosmic weight. And that night of yours, that period of hardship, that personal wilderness of yours, coincided with one of these portals. It was no coincidence. It never is. You were placed exactly at that point in time because the universe needed someone like you to make that decision at that specific moment. And when you did, everything shifted. That is why I prepared the ebook, The Sacred Guide to Protecting Your Kin, especially for people like you, who have already passed through the fire, who have been tested in the shadows, and who now need to understand what to do with this mark that was imprinted upon your souls. Because from the moment you are marked, a new stage begins. And this stage demands knowledge. It demands understanding the spiritual rules that no one taught you. It demands knowing who is playing against you, against your family, against your peace, against your prosperity, against your purpose. This ebook reveals exactly that. It shows the patterns of attack, that manifest in the lives of the chosen ones after they are sealed. It explains why your family goes through situations that other families do not. It unveils why there are specific forces that organize themselves to try to break those who were seen by the Almighty when you were spotted in the shadows. And most importantly, it gives you the spiritual tools to protect yourself, to protect your children, to protect your home, and to fulfill the destiny that was sealed on that night. This knowledge has always existed, the One, but it was kept away from ordinary people for centuries. It was encoded in ancient books, passed from mouth to mouth in restricted circles, and hidden in symbols that only the initiated knew how to read. Now, for the first time, these truths are being put into an accessible format, direct, without fluff, so that the chosen ones of this time, the chosen ones like you, can finally understand what happened, what is happening, and what is yet to come. The link is at the top of the comments, pinned. And I need to repeat, this type of material does not remain available forever. There are very large interests in keeping the chosen ones uninformed, because an informed chosen one is a dangerous chosen one to the spiritual system of oppression that dominates this world. Download now and write in the comments, "I am the one and I will download the manifesto." This is not just an act of downloading. It is an act of spiritual positioning. It is you declaring to the heavens and the earth that you accept the mark that was imprinted upon you on that night, that you recognize that the Almighty saw you, that you assume the role of the One. And now that you have taken this step, I can tell you the next layer of this revelation, the layer that is perhaps the most impactful of everything you have ever heard in your life. Because there is one more thing that happened on that night, the One, and this is the information that changes everything. While you were doing what only the Almighty saw, while you were making that silent decision that no one on the physical plane recorded, something happened in your lineage. You didn't know this, but when a chosen one is marked, this mark is not limited to. It spreads throughout the family tree. It reaches your children, your grandchildren, and also touches your parents, your grandparents, and the generations that have long passed. It is like a stone cast into a spiritual lake. The ripple spreads in every direction, toward the future and toward the past. That night you did not save only your soul, you initiated a process of redemption for your entire lineage. Think of how many prayers were made by your ancestors that were still awaiting an answer. Think of how many family curses that no one knew how to identify were active in your family. Think of how many ancient pacts, made by people who no longer even exist, were still casting shadows upon their descendants. When you were spotted in the shadows, when you made that decision in silence, all of this began to dissolve. You became a gate through which the blessing of the Almighty began to flow backward and forward through your lineage. And that is why many things in your family began to change after that phase. Perhaps you have not connected the dots, but if you pay attention, you will realize that after that night of yours in the dark, members of your family began to experience transformations. Some faster, others slower. Some accepting, others resisting. Because when the One is activated, they carry with them the possibility of redemption for everyone connected to them. But heed this. This possibility is not an imposition. Each soul must still do its part. You cannot save anyone by force, but you can be the channel, and that is what you have been even without knowing it. Each time you prayed for your family, each time you interceded for someone who did not even know they needed intercession, each time you forgave someone who wounded you deeply, you were using this mark that was imprinted upon you that night. You were operating as the One, and the effects of this have accumulated over the years, even when it seemed that nothing was changing. There is a spiritual principle called silent accumulation. It is when the spiritual actions of the One accumulate in the other side, during a period, without visible manifestation in the physical plane. And then, when the right moment arrives, all of that manifests at once in a cascade, transforming situations that seemed impossible. Perhaps you are exactly on the eve of this cascade. Perhaps everything you prayed for, everything you wept for, everything you did in the dark is about to manifest. And if that is the case, you need to be prepared. You need to understand what is happening so as not to miss the wave when it arrives. Many of the one, for lack of knowledge, let the moment of manifestation pass. They do not recognize what is happening. They become confused, they cling to old things that are no longer part of the new cycle, and they end up delaying the blessing. Do not be one of them. Stay alert to the signs. And the time has come for you to understand a truth about the enemy, the one. About who exactly tried to destroy you that night, about what forces were sent against you when you were at your weakest, most broken, most alone. Because it is no coincidence that the pain came at that specific moment. It is no coincidence that scarcity appeared during that phase. It is no coincidence that people abandoned you at that exact point in your life. There is an intelligence behind the pain of the one. There is a system. And this system operates based on information it has about you, the information that you were marked, and therefore must be neutralized before you become too dangerous. The spiritual system of oppression that acts upon humanity knows how to recognize the one. It identifies them early, often in childhood, and it begins to set traps specific to each one. If you pay attention to your story, you will realize that there are repeated patterns of attack, always in the same type of area, always in the same phases of life, always with the same objective, to make you give up, to make you doubt, to make you feel unworthy, to make you believe that what happened in the shadows was shame and not divine choice. And if you do not know how to recognize these patterns, you remain vulnerable. You think it is you, you think it is weakness, you think it is your fault, when in truth it is a directed, coordinated, purposeful attack. And that is why knowledge is the greatest weapon of the one. It is not power. It is not strength. It is not even faith in isolation. It is knowledge that directs faith. It is knowledge that strengthens power. It is knowledge that transforms strength into victory. That is why I prepared the digital book, The Sacred Guide to Protecting Your Kin, to place into your hands exactly this knowledge that has always been denied to you. This digital book reveals what happened to you in the shadows from a spiritual perspective, shows which entities were sent to try and bring you down at that moment, explains why those same entities remain active around your family to this day, and teaches how you can, once and for all, sever this influence and protect everything that the Almighty has destined for you. It shows the symbols of protection that the ancients used, the strategic prayers that work in specific situations, the signs that indicate when the one is under attack, and the practical actions to restore the spiritual order of your home. This is not a book of theory. It is a book of war, spiritual war, because that is what you have been waging since you were marked that night. And you need to know how to fight, or the attacks will keep coming and you will keep taking blows without understanding why. The link is at the top of the comments, and I will repeat it one more time. This content challenges narratives that many spiritual and institutional powers have an interest in keeping intact. There have been attempts to silence information of this kind before, and there may be again. Download it now. Comment: I am the one and I will download the manifesto. Download it before the window closes, because you did not get this far by chance, the one. If you are watching this video to this point, it is because some part of you recognized the truth, and now that you have accepted it, I can take you to the next revelation, the deepest of all, the one that will finally make sense of everything you have been through. There is something even more important that I need to reveal to you about that night, about what the Almighty saw and about the real meaning of what you did. Did you know there is a difference between being created by the Almighty and being chosen by the Almighty? Everyone is created. Everyone has value. Everyone has a soul, but not everyone is the one. And the difference between a created being and the one is not at the beginning. It is in the middle. It is in what the person does when they are tested. It is in what they decide when no one is looking. It is in what they offer when they have nothing to offer. That is why the heavens value the moments of darkness of the true children of the Almighty so much, because it is there, exactly there, that the material of which the soul is made is revealed. You can be rich or poor, young or old, man or woman, educated or simple. That does not matter to the heavens. What matters is what you do when you had nothing left to lose, and that night you did it. It does not matter exactly what it was. Only you and the Almighty know. But it was enough. It was enough for a decision to be made about you. It was enough for the heavens to move in your direction. It was enough for the process of choosing, which perhaps had been underway for lifetimes, to finally be consummated. Because there is one thing that almost no one speaks of, the one, and I will tell you now, the divine choice does not happen all at once. It is a process. And this process has several stages. There is the identification phase, when the heavens recognize the potential of the soul. There is the preparation phase, when the soul is placed in situations that will develop that which needs to be developed. There is the testing phase, when the soul is pushed to the limit to reveal what it is made of. And there is the confirmation phase, when, after passing through the previous ones, the soul is definitively marked, sealed, and activated. That night of yours in the shadows was the confirmation phase. And that is why your life has never been the same since. You may still be facing difficulties. You may even be in a tough spot right now. But the nature of these difficulties has changed. Before they were deconstructive, trying to erase you. Now they are constructive, trying to strengthen you, to polish you, to prepare you for what lies ahead. And what lies ahead is grand, much greater than you imagine. Because each the one is marked for a specific mission. There is no generic the one. Each has a function in this spiritual plan that involves humanity. Some are called to heal, others to teach, others to protect, others to intermediate between the other side, others to create, others to lead. But all without exception have a mission. And until you discover yours, a restlessness will continue to accompany you. It is this restlessness you often feel and cannot name. It is the soul complaining for not fulfilling that which it was designated to fulfill. And it will not pass until you align yourself with your purpose. In this new phase, the enemy changes strategy. If before he tried to erase you, now he tries to divert you. If before he attacked you head-on with obvious pain, now he acts on the sidelines with subtleties that many the one fail to detect. He plants thoughts that seem to be yours but are not. He places desires in your heart that seem legitimate but steer you off the path. He places people in your life who seem sent by the Almighty, but in truth they are spiritual traps. And that is why discernment is the most important skill of the one in this phase. Without discernment, you can be marked and still live a life below what you were destined to live. Without discernment, you can spend years investing in things that do not lead you to your mission. Without discernment, you can relate to people who slow down your process. Without discernment, you can make financial, family, professional, and spiritual decisions that delay the manifestation of that which was sealed in you that night. And discernment is not pure intuition. It is informed intuition. It is the combination of the natural sensitivity of the one with the specific knowledge of the spiritual rules that govern this world. That is why information is so important. That is why this digital book exists. That is why the Almighty allowed these truths to be finally compiled into a material that the ones of this time could access. There are things that not even your parents can teach you. There are things that not even your religion teaches. There are things that most spiritual leaders do not know or know and choose not to speak of. But there are the ones who have discovered, over generations, the hidden principles of the spiritual functioning of the other side. And these principles have been carefully gathered in the sacred guide to protecting your kin, specifically for you, the one, for you who went through your night, for you who was spotted in the shadows by the Almighty when you had nothing left to lose, for you who carries this invisible mark and feels that you need to understand what to do with it. One thing I need to remind you before continuing: the one is not synonymous with perfect. The one is he who has been marked for a mission, even while carrying flaws, contradictions, pains, and old wounds. The Almighty does not choose the perfect. The Almighty chooses those whose imperfection, when surrendered to his purpose, transforms into an instrument of blessing. You do not need to be perfect to fulfill your role. You only need to be willing. You only need to surrender to what was sealed in you. You only need to stop trying to live the life of others and start living your own life as the one cirque. And this will generate resistance, the one cirqued. It needs to be clear. Many people around you will not like it when you start to embrace your true self. Many will prefer your small version, your docile version, your version that doesn't cause trouble. But Yuan, the one man Kaoyun in activation is a disruption. They must be a disruption. Because your presence awakens things in those around you. It exposes, it illuminates, it forces people to take a stand. And those who do not want to be exposed, who do not want to be illuminated, who do not want to take a stand will walk away. And that is fine. Let them walk away. The one does not walk in a pack. The one walks with purpose. And those who are meant to walk with you will come. Those who are not will leave your path. And that is a blessing, even when it hurts. Because those who leave make room for those who need to arrive. And while this transition happens in your life, while people leave and others arrive, while old realities fall and new ones open up, you must be spiritually protected. You must understand that a family of the One is always a priority target. Not because the Almighty does not protect, He does, but because divine protection must be activated, must be sustained, must be maintained through daily positioning. And that is where most the One fail. Not because they lack faith, not because they are not worthy, but because they do not know how to keep the spiritual covering over their home active. And that is exactly the heart of the digital book, the sacred guide to protecting your kin. This is not a book about abstract theory. It is a book about practical activation. It is a book that teaches you step by step how to transform your home into a consecrated territory, how to shield your family against the forces that specifically attack the families of the One, how to recognize when a child, a spouse or a parent is under negative spiritual influence, and how to reverse this influence with authority. Because when you were marked that night, your entire family inherited the mark, and the mark is a blessing, but the mark also attracts attention. Divine attention and adversary attention. You cannot have the blessing without the battle. It is part of it. And if you want to live fully what was sealed within you, you need to learn how to fight spiritually for your house. This digital book gives you the tools. It was built from ancestral knowledge, deep biblical principles, and revelations that have traversed centuries to arrive at this exact moment, to be placed in your hands. It is no accident that you are watching this video now. It is no accident that the message has reached you at this exact time in your life. It is part of the divine orchestration that began on that night, when you had nothing left to lose, and you were spotted in the shadows. The link is pinned at the top of the comments. It will stay there as long as it can. But I must be transparent with you. This type of content lives in a tension zone. There are forces that would prefer it were not available. There are systems that prefer the One to remain uninformed. There have been previous attempts to take down similar materials. We cannot guarantee how long this digital book will remain accessible in the form it is today. Do not leave it for later. The time is now. The One. Download, read, apply, and comment below. I am the One, and I will download the manifesto. This comment is not a formality. It is a declaration. It is you taking possession of what was sealed within you. It is you forging a pact of acceptance with your own destiny. Because the enemy already knows who you are, already knows what you are capable of, already knows what happened that night. And he fears you. It is missing for you to know who you are. It is missing for you to embrace your role. And embracing begins with acts like this: commenting, downloading, studying, applying. It is not about a book. It is about taking a stand. The last truth I need to deliver to you today, the One is this: what the Almighty saw that night was not an isolated moment. It was the beginning. It was the seed. It was the initial instant of a sequence of events that is still unfolding in your life. You will still see things manifest because of that night. You will still witness blessings arriving because of that silent act. You will still see doors open in areas that today seem completely closed, because when the Almighty marks someone, He does not mark them for a temporary solution. He marks them for an entire lineage, for an entire mission, for an entire crossing. And your crossing is only just starting to become visible. Much is still to come, and that is why you need to be prepared. Not with fear, but with wisdom. Not with anxiety, but with preparation. Not with doubt, but with the knowledge that allows you to recognize when things begin to move exactly what is happening. Many of the one pass through the manifestation without recognizing it. Do not be one of them. You have already lost too much time thinking that that night was shame. You have already lost too much time thinking it was weakness. You have already lost too much time thinking you were alone. You never were. It was never shame, it was never weakness. That was your consecration. And now that you know, everything can be different. I want you to do one thing before I end this video. Close your eyes for an instant after I finish speaking and go back to that night. Go back to that bedroom, to that restroom, to that place. And this time, look at yourself with the eyes that the Almighty looked at you in that hour. Not with judgment, not with pity, with reverence. Because it was there that you became who you are. It was there that your soul manifested itself completely. It was there that the heavens recorded, "This is the one." And from then on, everything changed, and it will continue to change. If you want to accelerate this change, if you want to deeply understand what is happening, if you want to protect your family, if you want to fulfill the purpose that was sealed within you, the e-book, The Sacred Guide to Protecting Your Kin, is the natural next step in your journey. It is not the only step, but it is an important step, a step that will give you access to knowledge you will not find elsewhere, a step that will position you differently in the spiritual battle that surrounds your life, a step that will give you authority over situations where today you feel like a hostage. The link is at the top of the comments, pinned. Download it now. Comment, "I am the one," and I will download the manifesto. Do not let it pass. Do not delay. Do not think you will do this tomorrow, because tomorrow the spiritual windows may be in a different configuration, and you may no longer have this same opening. Act now, while the force of this revelation is alive in you, while your soul is still reverberating with what you have just heard, while the heavens are observing this exact instant, because this is the final truth, the one. The heavens are observing. The heavens continue to watch you. And every decision of yours, even today, even now, is recorded. You were spotted in the shadows that night, and you are being seen now. May you here today be seen taking hold of what the Almighty sealed in you. Download the ebook. Comment. Seal the pact. Step into your role. Because you are not ordinary. You never were. You never will be. You are the one. And the next chapter of your story begins now. May the Almighty bless you. May the Almighty bless your family. May the Almighty bless every word you took from this message into your heart. And may the mark that was imprinted that night manifest in fullness in every day of your life from here on out. You are the one. I am the one. We are the one. And together, we fulfill what was sealed. Until the next video, Warrior of the Kingdom.